There is a dark side to the so-called Belt and Road program. China's massive undertaking for global development rests on forced labor. And a new report today details the pattern of abuse. The West accuses Beijing of exploiting ethnic minority Uyghurs to produce cotton. Nick Schifrin reports how that Western criticism sparked a nationalist backlash in China, directed at Western companies.
On Chinese social media, patriotism requires punishing perceived enemies. Last month, that enemy was Swedish department store H&M. A popular blogger ripped up what she called her last H&M blouse. And H&M's flagship in Beijing disappeared from Chinese mapping and e-commerce sites.
I'm thinking right now.
On Chinese TV, aspiring pop stars were feeling good because their Adidas shirts were blurred after that company faced a boycott. And pro-Beijing lawmakers in Hong Kong looked lovingly for the last time at their Burberry scarves, also boycotted. In their place, Chinese blogger Oh Wang Xiaoming told her million followers to buy Chinese.
Take advantage of this opportunity to give our domestic goods a chance. We'll confirm that no one in no country can order us around.
The boycott was launched when China's Communist Youth League criticized H&M and other companies for last year's statements expressing concern that cotton from China's Xinjiang region was produced by forced labor. 80% of Chinese cotton comes from Xinjiang. The US and Europe say that Uyghurs involved in the process are forced into that labor, and they accuse Beijing of genocide against the Uyghur people.
With regard to the Uyghurs.
2 days before the boycotts, the US and Europe launched coordinated sanctions.
We need to be able to bring the world together in speaking with one voice in condemning what has taken place and what continues to take place.
Beijing denies Western accusations. The Communist Youth League post read, "Spreading rumors to boycott Xinjiang cotton while trying to make money in China? Wishful thinking." Beijing's backers bragged about Xinjiang cotton on the runway during China Fashion Week and stoked by Chinese state media. This was reported live from Xinjiang.
So, Michelle, you can see, with us is a very prosperous Icon Square, and this is exactly what is happening in Kashgar. There's definitely no genocide, so to speak. So, Michelle, back to you.
Nationalism has become the new ideology in China.
Zheng Wang is a professor at Seton Hall's School of Diplomacy and International Relations. He says Chinese influencers risk losing support if they don't reflect demands to be patriotic. Actress Victoria Song dropped her H&M endorsement, saying national interests are above all else.
No people, they want to be a target of the internet nationalism. So they don't want to be being blamed for not patriotic enough.
But the boycott also reflects a more assertive Beijing. Under Xi Jinping, China is more willing to require companies to follow its rules and to claim Western hypocrisy. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Hua Chunying.
This is a picture from the U.S. when black slaves were forced to pick cotton in the fields. And this is a picture of Xinjiang's cotton field. The accusation of so-called forced labor in Xinjiang does not exist.
And it does represent a tipping point. And some of it has to do with the particular issue of Xinjiang and the Uyghurs and the way that's being viewed in the West. But I think it also has to do with broader dynamics in terms of China's changing relationship with the West.
Michael Herson is the China practice head for the Eurasia Group and the former U.S. Treasury chief representative in Beijing. He says Western companies operating in China are caught between Beijing's demands for silence and Western demands to avoid forced labor.
They're facing two-way political risk right now. They're under pressure from home governments and stakeholders like NGOs to speak out on some of these values issues related to China. And then, of course, in China's market, they're under pressure from the government and also bottom-up pressure from Chinese citizens who are inclined to partake in consumer boycotts.
China has more middle-class potential consumers than the U.S. has population, and it remains the world's manufacturing leader. Many companies are bending to Beijing's pressure. By the end of last month, H&M China says it does not represent any political position and is committed to long-term investment and development in China. And its headquarters posted a statement saying it hoped to regain the trust of its Chinese consumers.
For a lot of Western companies, the China market is both too large and the political blowback in China is too acute. Many companies have push comes to shove, are going to try to stay in the China market and will probably risk a Western blowback over a blowback in China.
But the U.S. is trying to exert its own pressure. Customs and Border Protection are now conducting checks like this one of ships arriving in the U.S. with Xinjiang cotton and tomatoes. The Trump administration passed a regional ban. The Biden administration is implementing it.
We've been working very hard to protect, protect the American people, protect American businesses, and ensure that goods produced in whole and part with forced labor are not entering our market.
Ana Hinojosa is a Customs and Border Protection Executive Director. She says since an initial ban on Xinjiang cotton in December, CBP has detained over 300 shipments to ensure they carried no cotton produced with Xinjiang forced labor. An additional 200 shipments turned around before they could be checked.
We have received very clear signals that this is just as much of a priority to this administration as it was to the previous administration. I think President Biden has been very clear that the issue of forced labor is something that is part of his trade agenda.
But it's not easy to know whether cotton is from Xinjiang or was made with forced labor. China mixes domestic and imported cotton and blocks companies from independent investigations. So CBP is working on new tracing technology.
There's no silver bullet, but we are optimistic that there are some really good technologies that are helping answer some of those questions and hopefully making things a little bit easier for businesses to stay compliant.
In the meantime, Beijing will demand compliance to its rules. And while the West will object to Chinese human rights violations, there's little evidence that Beijing is willing to listen. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Nick Schifrin.